Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Syafiqah binti Nizam. So today I'm going to talk about the introduction of our study. The conduct of our study has two major aims in mind, which is first, we aim to investigate the difficulties of online learning, and secondly, whether they prefer online learning or not in the future. Next, since the COVID-19 pandemic outbreaks, online learning and teaching is totally a new experience in Malaysia. So it is understandable when people express how difficult it is to reinforce new teaching and learning approach. Although there are a majority of students who enjoy online learning and gain new experience in learning and IT abilities, however, there are also students who having poor internet connection, network problems, that is the major challenge experienced by some students. The government, telecommunication organisation and university should give some thought about these problems and invest on developing internet infrastructure in Malaysia, as online learning is becoming the only solution for our educational system. Objective of study: to analyse students' attitude and perception regarding online learning implementation in Malaysia, because online learning and teaching is totally a new experience in Malaysia. Next, to identify the difficulties that students encountered during online learning, such as communication problem and internet problems. And lastly, to evaluate student thoughts and opinion on dealing with online learning and teaching in the future, such as whether they want to continue with online learning or not.
Hello and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Najra binti Ghazali, and I'm gonna proceed with the research questions. Basically, this chapter will present research method used to investigate the online learning readiness among university students in Malaysia amidst COVID-19 outbreak. So the approach and methods employed in this study were guided by three research questions, which is the first: does gender and problem level of university students affect their online learning satisfactions, experience, and intention to use online learning in the future? Second, what are the most preferred and least preferred learning methods among university students? And the third one, what are the challenges that university students encounter when it comes to online learning?
For conceptual framework, it have independent variable and dependent variable. Independent variable is online learning readiness. Meanwhile, for dependent variable is computer and internet efficiency. Next, self-direct learning, learner control, motivation for learning, and online communication self-efficacy. For hypothesis, there is alternate hypothesis and null hypothesis. The first alternate hypothesis is there is a relationship between computer and internet self-efficacy and online learning readiness. And the null hypothesis is there is no relationship between computer and internet self-efficacy and online learning readiness. The second alternate hypothesis is there is a relationship between self-direct learning and online learning readiness. And the null hypothesis is there is no relationship between self-direct learning and online learning readiness. For the third hypothesis, for the alternate, there is a relationship between learner control and online learning readiness, and the null hypothesis is there is no relationship between learner control and online learning readiness. The fourth hypothesis is for alternate, there has a relationship between motivation for learning and online learning readiness, and the null hypothesis, there is no relationship between motivation for learning and online learning readiness. Last but not least, the alternate hypothesis is there is a relationship between online communication self-efficacy and online learning readiness, and the null hypothesis is there is no relationship between online communication self-efficacy and online learning readiness.
Okay, next is the population. Okay, with the target and accessible population in our survey and our respondents. And our respondent was only from Malaysia, and their age must in 18 until the 30 years old, and currently was pursuing their education in diploma or pre-university or foundation or bachelor's degree, and more.
Sampling. The size of the sampling with the total of 150 respondents were chosen from the populations of students in Malaysia to answer and completed the survey provided by the researchers. So the technique of sampling applied is random sampling, where all the respondents were picked randomly from any education background who are currently furthering their studies in Malaysia. So the research was carried out by involving private and government education institutions. All the participants or respondents are responsible to answer all of the questions given by the researcher to evaluate the readiness for online learning during the outbreak of COVID-19.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nurul Ilmai binti Muhammad Nur. Next, I'm going to present about the research instrument. The research instrument that we used in carry out this study is by using questionnaires through online forms such as Google Form. The type of questions that we are implemented in our questions is structured questions, where all the answers options have been given towards the respondents, where they are allowed to choose which option of answer is suitable towards them. And then we build and develop this kind of questions by referring to the same case study of article, and we discuss among ourselves on based on the independent and dependent variable.
Okay, next is the data analysis result and discussion. Okay, firstly, for the descriptive statistic is for the measure of location, which is the mean, median, and mode. We can see there are the significance difference for the internet connectivity with the others demographics question, which is for the gender is the mean is 1.1933, for the age is 1.2467, for the program level is 1.6800, and for the geographical location is 1.1523, for the internet connectivity is 2.1467, and for the online learning location is 1.3133. For the median, there are all for gender, age, geographical location, and the online learning location have a same amount, which is the 1.0. Meanwhile, for the program level and the internet connectivity was 2.0. For the mode, the gender, age, and in geographical location and online learning location have a same amount also, which is the 1.0. Meanwhile, for the program level and internet connectivity is 2.0. Okay, next is the measure of spread, which is the variability or dispersion. Okay, for the standard deviation, we can see that there are significant difference for the gender and geographical location with the internet connectivity, which is the internet connectivity is 0.78052, and for the gender is 0.39624, for the age is 0.47680, and for the program level is 0.61655, for the geographical location is 0.36152, and lastly for the online learning location, the standard deviation is 0.55728. For the variance, we can see also there are significant difference with the internet connectivity with the geographical location and the gender. For the gender is 0.50157, and for the age is 0.227. For the program level is 0.380. For the geographical location is 0.131. For the internet connectivity is 0.609. And lastly, for the online learning location is 0.311. The range of the statistic for the demographic question that we give for the respondent is there are significant difference for the internet connectivity with the geographical location and the gender. We can see for the gender, the range is 1.0, for the age is 2.0, for the program level is 2.0, for the geographical location is 1.0, and the internet connectivity is 3.0. Lastly, for the online learning location is 2.0. For the quartiles also, we can see the percentile for the 25 have the same amount. Meanwhile, for the 50, only program level in the 2.0, and for the 75, the gender, age, and the geographical location 1.0. Meanwhile, for the program level, internet connectivity and online learning location is 2.0. Okay, for the measure of shape, which is the skewness, we can see all of the demographic question that we gave have a positive and normal skewness. Meanwhile, for the internet connectivity is a negative skewness. For the kurtosis, the program level and the internet connectivity have a negative, which is the program level is negative 0.640, and for the internet connectivity is negative 0.991. Okay, next is the frequency. For the gender, the frequency, most of our respondent was female, which is the female more than male. For the female respondent, the total is 121. Meanwhile, for the male respondents is 29 only. And for the skewness, it shows a positive in the graph because the mode was on the right side. Okay, for the age, the frequency, majority of our respondent was 18 until the 21 years old. For the, which is the total of the respondents is 121. Meanwhile, for the respondent in the age of 22 until the 25 years old, there are 31 respondents, and for the 26 until the 30 years old, there are only 3 respondents. For the skewness, it showed positive in the graph because the mode was on the right side. Next is the program level. Mostly our respondent in a degree program, and for the diploma or PU or foundation, there are 60 respondents. The degree is 78 respondents, and others are 12 respondents. The skewness are normal because the mode was in the middle of the graph. Okay, after that is the geographical location. Our majority of our respondents was from the West Malaysia, which is the total of respondents from the West Malaysia is 127. And for the East Malaysia, there are only 23 respondents. The skewness also positive because the mode was on the right side. In the range between the respondent from the West Malaysia and with the East Malaysia are 104. Okay, next is the internet connectivity. Most of our respondent answer is good, and for the very good is 34 respondent. For the good is 62 respondent. For the average is 53 respondent. For the poor, there are only 2 respondents. The skewness was normal because the mode immediate on answer good, which is there are good internet connectivity. Lastly is the online learning location. The frequency, most of our respondents live in city or town areas. For which is the total, our respondent who live in city or town area is 110 respondents. For answer who is our respondent live in rural areas is 33 respondents, and for the respondent who currently their online learning question is university hostel, there are only 7 respondents. The skewness show positive in the graph, and for the range, the respondents is 103.
As we can see, the Chromebook alpha for computer and internet efficiency is 0.832. This shows that the items are reliable and the entire test is internally consistent as it is closer to 1. The Chromebook alpha is reliability coefficient as the items are positively correlated to one another. Based on the table, there is no deletion of items will be made as all of the items are correlated to one another. As we can see, the obtained alpha score for self-directed learning is 0.839. This shows that the items are reliable and the entire test is internally consistent as it is closer to 1. The Chromba alpha is reliability coefficient as the items are positively correlated to one another. In the table, we can note that item 2 has lowest corrected item total correlation. If this item was removed from the scale, the Chromba alpha if item deleted column shows that overall reliability will increase to 0.856. Hence, deletion of this item may be considered. As we can see, the obtained alpha score for learner control is 0.77. This shows that the items are reliable and the entire test is internally consistent. In the table, we can note that item 2 has lowest corrected item total correlation. If this item was removed from the scale, the Chromba alpha if item deleted column shows that overall reliability will increase to 0.799. Thus, deletion of this item may be considered. As we can see, the obtained alpha score for motivation for learning is 0.85. This shows that the items are reliable and the entire test is internally consistent. In the table, we can note that item 1 has lowest corrected item total correlation. If this item was removed from the scale, the Chromba alpha if item deleted column shows that overall reliability will increase to 0.856. As a result, the deletion of this item may be considered. As we can see, the obtained alpha score for online communication self-efficacy is 0.907. This shows that the items are reliable and the entire test is internally consistent. Based on the table, there is no deletion of items will be made as all of the items are correlated to one another. As we can see, the obtained alpha score for online learning readiness is 0.811. This shows that the items are reliable and the entire test is internally consistent. Based on the table, there is no deletion of items will be made as all of the items are correlated to one another.
As for the significant difference, we can say that the hypothesis stated there is no significant difference between gender in internet or computer self-efficacy. In testing this hypothesis, we are using independent sample test. Based on the table, we can state that the null hypothesis is accepted while alternate hypothesis is rejected. This is because the p-value or significant to tail value is more than 0.05, which is 0.853 and 0.852. Therefore, there is no significant difference between gender in internet or computer self-efficacy. Next hypothesis is there is no significant difference between gender in self-directed learning or self-learning. In analyzing or testing this hypothesis, we use the same sample test, which is independent sample test. Based on the table, we can state that the null hypothesis is accepted while the alternative is rejected. This is because the p-value or the significance to tail value is more than 0.05, which is 0.440 and 0.398. Therefore, there is no significant difference between gender in self-directed learning or self-learning. So the hypothesis is accepted. Furthermore, hypothesis stated that there is no significant difference between geographical location in learner control. In analyzing and testing this hypothesis, we use the same sample test, which is independent sample test. Based on the table, it shows that the null hypothesis is accepted while alternate hypothesis is rejected. This is because the p-value or significant to tail value is more than 0.05, which is 0.391 and 0.409. Therefore, there is no significant difference between the geographical location in learner control. So the hypothesis also is accepted.
From the table of correlation analysis, it shows that the hypothesis is accepted. Based on the significant to tail, the p-value is 0.00 and the value is less than 0.05 as formulated in the SPSS. It is alternate hypothesis. Therefore, this shows that there is significant relationship between online learning readiness and computer self-efficacy. Thus, it can be concluded the null hypotheses are rejected and we accept the alternate hypothesis. From the table, it shows that the hypothesis is accepted. The p-value is 0.0, which is less than 0.05. Therefore, this shows that there is significant relationship between online learning readiness and self-directed learning. Thus, null hypothesis is rejected and alternate hypothesis is accepted. According to the table, the p-value is 0.00, which is less than 0.05. So the hypothesis is accepted. As a result, null hypothesis is rejected and alternate hypothesis is accepted. Therefore, this shows that there is significant relationship between online learning readiness and learner control.